Hello friends, Nicholas here with DIVO-Ted Talks, Devoted Talks. You know the drill. Whatever you want it to be. I prefer TED Talks. At any rate, welcome back to today's episode. And I wanted to talk to you about how challenging life can feel, how mysterious it can feel, and how oppressive it can feel. And I've been racking my brain, not racking it really, but every time I teach a yoga class, I keep getting closer and closer to what I can understand as the reason or the impetus for this feeling. And as an idealist, I find myself in this conundrum a lot where I want something so badly. In an ideal world, it should be like that, but I'm not allowing the world to be what it is. And therefore, I am trying to swim upstream. And the higher upstream I get, the more forceful the pressure is, because I am just fighting against it and fighting against it and fighting against it instead of just trying to flow with it. Because if I go with it and I get my bearings within the flow of it, I can then steer myself in the directions I want to. So in a previous episode, we were talking about, manifesting and being conflicted about our energies with regards to what we desire and being able to receive it. And this is that same idea. If you keep trying to swim upstream and trying to capture the manifestation rather than letting it manifest, appear, become, then you're going to expend a lot of energy most likely. And maybe that's not always the case, right? Sometimes people will call start an overnight sensation. That person is like, I worked on my craft for so long, and then after 10 years, it was like it was overnight, right? And many times in those cases, we don't see all of the little piece by piece steps that brought that forward and with them. And so what I would like to postulate is that perhaps you are on the verge of your greatest breakthrough as long as you keep moving forward. And maybe, just maybe, it will be even better than you thought, because if you're feeling that energy of swimming upstream, it means you're probably still living in the problem, and therefore the solution is not necessarily impossible to live into or believe, yet it's not readily available because it's not the same energy. It is a polarity of a particular quality, right? The gunas in Ayurveda. There's the three mahagunas, which are the three major ones, rajas, tamas, and sattva. And, as many qualities as you can come up with, there is an equal and opposite quality as well. Now we have the 10 opposites. So there's 20 qualities, but there are the 10 pairs of opposites that are the main ones for Ayurveda. And most things can fit under that. But if we're qualitatively living a human life, we have names for emotions and things that maybe supersede or may be very colloquial, and that's okay. So just know that if you are feeling one way or you're experiencing one way, that there is an equal and opposite to that. You just may not have the name for it. But again, that goes back to the belief. How much can you believe it and then allow it to be true for you? The more you conflict your energies, the more conflicted everything will be manifestationally in your life. And so what is this episode about? It's about being clear with who you are and what you want to do, and not trying to be something that you are not, so that you are not spending all of your time and energy swimming upstream, perhaps in a river that you never wanted in the first place. It doesn't mean you can't use it to get to the river that you want to. But first, do you want this life that you're trying to create, or are you just trying to survive? And if you're just trying to survive, that's living in the problem, and that's okay. But if you can recognize it as the problem, what would be the solution? And rather than trying to make a solution or just survive, perhaps you take a pause and a step back, and you allow the answer to come to you. And not just allow the answers to come to you, but allow the first thought of what the solution might be. All right. And then in Ayurveda, we have Upashaya, which is another methodology where sometimes things are just so mysterious you have to, eliminate things and test things, trial and error, trial by fire. And that's okay. So maybe you don't get it right away. Maybe you're not used to being intuitive or meditative or receptive in your own right through a traditional, or not traditional, but a regular practice or dinacharya, something that you practice with regularity. And so it may be a process, but do you have to understand the process for the process to work? You may think so. And your brain and your body, because of trauma or because of other training, may tell you that you need to. But I'm here to tell you that gravity doesn't need you to understand it for it to work. Just like the sun doesn't need you to understand it for it to work. Space. The only thing that needs you to know for you to know how it to work is something that you create. But that's kind of cool, because if you created it, then you're infused with the creation itself. And what do I mean by that? That's a great question. Things that are man-made and mutually agreed upon in society do require that you know how they work. But things in these greater forces, these greater machinations of life, like manifestation, like enlightenment, they don't require you to know how they work for them to work. But societally, you do need to know how taxes work, or you need to pay somebody to help you with the taxes if you don't know how they work. And this is kind of the idea here. Is there something that you don't understand, but there are people that do, and you can get assistance so that you don't have to swim upstream trying to learn it? But maybe you enjoy learning, right? Those wacky few out there, but I bet those people wouldn't end up here other than for maybe peace, serenity, and, some chill vibes, right? You're not probably in suffering if you enjoy the learning process. If you can look at life as a learning process, it's probably not going to be so oppressive for you. But if you look at people who have inherited money and who have had it given to them, they're trying to keep it. They're trying to make it, but because they didn't create it in the first place. And so they need to learn. They should learn, but many of them don't. They oftentimes use ways, and I'm talking very politically and very American politics and big business, but they learn ways on how to use the system to their advantage. And so they are living in the solution, but morally and ethically, it's questionable how they're showing up. And so what does that mean for you? Well, you need to know your ethics first. You need to know your core principles, what you are willing and are not willing to do. And then get clear so that the things that are not you can leave, and the things that are you can reveal themselves to you, because there's now space for them in the first place. So you no longer swim upstream trying to manifest, but rather ready to receive the manifestations, because you're going with the flow and the current of the life that you are in right now. All right, my friends, thank you for your presence, energy, your inspiration, your love, and your trust. Be well, be free. This is Nicholas with DIVO-Ted Talks.